One of the main reasons people don't travel more is the price of expensive airfare. If you want to save money on airplane tickets and travel more for less, I've got 7 easy tips that will help you book cheap flights. A great way to save money on flights is to travel during what's called the shoulder season. And the shoulder season is basically the period of time between peak season and low season. It's usually the spring or the fall, but it depends on your destination. And the benefit of traveling during the shoulder season is the weather is usually still pretty nice and the crowds and the prices are lower. So one example is heading to Europe in early May. You can find flight prices several $100s cheaper round trip usually, but the benefits keep going once you're there because it's not blistering hot yet and a lot of times the kids are still in school, so there's not a ton of crowds. Now, one note, this is a balancing act, okay? There is a big difference between the shoulder season and the off season, right? If you go to a place during the off season, chances are your prices are going to be the lowest. However, you could end up in a place where everything is shut down. And I know this from experience. Allie and I once traveled to the Dalmatian coast in Croatia during like the tail end of shoulder season, but the cold weather came early, so most of these towns pretty much moved into the off season, and our activities were severely limited. Definitely travel during the shoulder season, but make sure you're not bleeding into the off season. There's a difference. A great way to save money on flights is to book multiple one-way tickets versus a single round-trip ticket. By doing this, you can mix and match airlines and airports to find the best deals. The strategy can also be helpful if you're traveling to multiple destinations because you can book each leg of your journey separately, which can often be cheaper than a single round-trip ticket. This is where Google Flights comes in really handy. When using Google Flights, I want you to go in with the mindset that you're doing research, just like when you do any other web search. Don't expect to find the best deal immediately as soon as you plug your dates in. Use your initial search as a jumping off point and then use Google Flights features like toggling one-way versus round trip to help you find the best deal. And this is a really nice segue into my next point. It's important to remember that convenience often comes at a cost. The fastest itinerary, nonstop flights, and itineraries with fewer connections are often gonna cost more. So if you're flexible with your travel plans, consider taking a longer route or an itinerary with a layover in order to save some money. Additionally, flights with longer layovers can sometimes be significantly cheaper than those with shorter layovers. Now, I'm not saying I always take the least convenient route or always opt for itineraries with a 6-hour layover, but these are levers you can pull to influence price. A great way to save money on flights is to experiment with multiple departure and arrival airports. Sometimes flying to or from a nearby airport can be significantly cheaper than flying to the one closest to your home or to your destination. There are a couple of ways to perform this search very easily with Google Flights. Did you know that in Google Flights, you're able to plug in up to 5 different departure and arrival airports? Now, maybe this doesn't make sense if you live right next to a major hub, but in my case, for example, I live within about an hour to 2-hour drive from 4 different regional airports, and I often search all 4 of those and sometimes find great deals that are not coming from my normal airport. Depending on where you're headed, there could be more than one way to get there, right? A lot of major cities have more than just one airport. An example I love to use is Europe. If I'm trying to get to Europe on the cheap, oftentimes if I can't find a cheap flight to or near my destination, I'll look for flights to cities like Dublin or Frankfurt, and oftentimes I could find a $20 flight from either of those airports to just about anywhere I want to go in Europe. Give this a shot, you might be surprised at what you find. Don't book your flights too early or too late. For the longest time, I've heard people say, if you want to save money on flights, you either have to book way in advance or at the last minute. This is complete nonsense, and we have data to prove otherwise. There's typically a sweet spot for each flight route that Scott Keyes, founder of Scotch Cheap Flights, calls the Goldilocks window. And he calls it that because it's not too early and not too late. Get it? Like Goldilocks? Booking too far in advance can often mean paying a premium for the convenience of securing a seat, whereas waiting until the last minute can drive expensive prices due to high demand. And this is where the Goldilocks window comes in. If you book during this period, you can often find the best deals because you're avoiding the high prices associated with either extreme. However, it's important to note that this is not a hard and fast rule, and there are many factors that influence the price of a flight. Google Flights price history tool is a really easy way to see if you're in that sweet spot or not. Another unique way to save money on flights is to lock in your fare. Certain airlines like United Airlines will allow you to hold a fare you found for up to a certain amount of time for a small fee. You can also use tools like Hopper to do the same thing. This gives you time to compare prices, protect you from price increases, and if the price drops, you could rebook at the lower price. I see this strategy as being especially helpful if you found a great deal, but you aren't positive you can take off work, or you aren't 100% sure that everyone in your group can make the trip with you, or if you just want to minimize your risk while you make up your mind. You can save a ton of money on flights by booking with points. And many people are intimidated by points, but it's actually much easier than you might think. If you have a credit card that earns travel rewards, you can use those points to book free flights. And if you're strategic, you could use the basic everyday expenses in your life to fund your ability to fly for cheap or free forever. This is actually my favorite way to save money on flights, and I've got a bunch of points and miles content coming. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. And if you want early access to content like that, subscribe to our newsletter using the links down below. If you want to learn more about how to use Google Flights, watch this video right here. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you got value out of this video. We'll see you next time.